Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Mystical Fairy Castle, and I'm going to be sipping on some Cabernet. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, ultramarine blue, Mars black, purple violet, fluorescent orange, deep yellow, and burnt umber, which I'll call brown. And of course, you can switch up those colors if you'd like to. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 2 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, and I have a number 6 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small and large as we go through the painting process. And of course, you could switch those up if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paint and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're painting our sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and the colors that I'm using are black, blue, purple, orange, yellow, and white. So the only color I'm not using is brown. And how I'm going to do this, I really want this to look like a nice moody magical sky. So I'm going to have it really dark up in the top left-hand corner. It's going to be pretty dark all along the sky, but this top left-hand corner is going to be the darkest. And then I'm going to transition into some lighter colors and brighter colors over on the right-hand side, and it'll be the brightest or lightest down by that horizon line. So I'm going to be bringing my sky down. If this was about the halfway mark, right about here, I'm going to bring my sky about 2 inches above that, and that's about as far down as I'm going to bring my sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the left-hand side and the right-hand side with 2 little dots, just to tell me how far I'm going and just to stop when I get there. So I just picked up a tiny bit of purple paint, and if this is my halfway area, I'm going to come up just about 2 inches from that, make myself a little bit of a mark. You could even use your brush as a measuring tool to come over to the other side and just kind of mark it in a similar spot on the other side. This just gives you visual stopping points to not go further than that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some black, blue, and purple all on my brush at the same time. I'm going to be using a left to right brush stroke throughout this sky. I will not pick up black again. This will be the one and only time that I pick up black, because I know how powerful it is. If you wanted your sky darker, of course, you could certainly use more black on it if you want to. But what I'm going to do, you saw that I added a little bit in through there. Now I'm going to just pick up some purple and blue and start transitioning down the sky, something like this. And in a moment, I'm going to start introducing more of my, I'll start introducing white and maybe a little bit of the orange. But right now, I'm just kind of getting that black to kind of work its way off of my brush. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and orange, and I'm going to start to transition that dark area of the sky into what I'm going to call the lighter area of the sky. So your sky is probably going to turn out different than mine. It's all right. Whatever happens, happens. This is just a moody, dreamy kind of sky that you can really get to be in whatever intensity that you want. So I'm going to start picking up some white and maybe a little bit more white. I already started a minute ago. I'm going to start to also pick up a little bit of yellow and orange at the same time. So you can, again, really get this to be in whatever color scheme that you want, but I really want it to be the lightest as it comes down towards this bottom, almost center of my canvas, but I want them all to look like they're all the colors to look like they're talking to each other. So I do keep using my left to right brush stroke, crisscrossing these colors over one another. I am utilizing some of that yellow at this point, some more orange, and I'm just kind of getting it into the colors that I want. Keep in mind that you will be doing some mountains on top of the sky. So know that if you bring that darkness all the way down to your marker, you might not get the visual effect of that sky transitioning down into a lighter color. So if you do want to make sure that you see that lightest color, you want it to start happening a bit above this line. So you don't want to just wait till you get all the way down to the bottom to start using your lightest color, which would be white. You can start that transition a bit before that. And of course you can make this as light or as bright, or again have as much orange or yellow in it as you want. You just kind of get that sky to be in whatever value you would like and whatever intensity you would like. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush. So once you've got that sky as moody as you want it, and you've got all of your colors transitioning the way that you want them to, I think I'm going to add a little bit more purple over on this side. Once you've got all of those colors in the way that you want to, you can take this brush, wash it and dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are going to be painting our water. So this is going to be a reflection of the sky. So guess what? You're using the same colors, you're using the same brush, and a pretty similar brush stroke. So I'm going to have my water is going to be, of course, reflecting the sky. So everything I do is going to be in reverse. I'm going to be starting at the bottom and working my way up. And I'm going to, of course, have my dark on the left and my brighters on the right. I'm going to be bringing this up in about the same type of distance from the bottom that I did for this one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just picking up a little bit of purple. I know that this is about this far from the top, so I'm going to go about that far from the bottom. And it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just giving it a good kind of balancing point in through here. When I do my water, I'm of course going to be using the same color, so I just picked up blue, purple, and black, but I'm not going to be as concerned about how perfectly blended it is. It can certainly look more ripply, so as you're doing it, feel free to get a little bit more carefree if you'd like to, but I'm going to, of course, go ahead and do a similar color order that I did on my sky. So again, I've got black, blue, and purple on my brush. I think I need a little bit more. I was a little bit too stingent with the amount of paint on my brush down there. So I've got that coming over on the right hand side, and now I'm going to start transitioning into my blue and purple, just giving it a little bit more color going in through here. And now I'm going to start picking up some of my orange. So I'm just kind of watching my top and just utilizing those same colors in a similar pattern. They don't have to be exact. You don't have to have them, you know, a mirror image per se, but you want it to resemble what you have up top so you can sell the story of it being a reflection of that sky. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to start picking up a little bit of yellow, orange, and white. We're going to go in through here a bit just to get these to, you know, again, mimic what's going on up top. I'm going to get this to pick up a little bit of white and go a little bit lighter as I'm coming down towards this horizon area in through here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, a perfect color match. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff covering a lot of your water. So at this point, I wouldn't be terribly concerned if it was exactly the same color, intensity, or vibrancy as you have up at the top. You just want something that again, is selling the story of a similar reflection with similar color patterns throughout it. And then once you've got this all set, let me just put a little bit more of my yellow on in through here. I see that I've got a pretty good amount in through there, so I want to make sure that I've got it down in through here as well. And then once I've got that all done, I want to make sure that I bring it up to my little markers that I have in through here. We are actually going to be using our pencil for the next step. But I just want to make sure I've got this nice and dark enough down at the bottom to take, you know, again, resemble what's going on the top. Just added a bit more darkness so I can make it match here. And of course, you can sit and tweak and fiddle with yours as much as you'd like. But when you feel like you've got it where you want it to be, you can put the large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the outline for our mountains. I'm going to be using my pencil, and these are imaginary mountains, so you can certainly make them in whatever pointiness or roundness or formation that you would like. Just use your imagination. I am going to guide you in the order I'm doing it, but you can certainly make yours whatever way that you want. And my thought process, the way I'm formulating my hills or mountains is I'm going to be having my fairy up in this right-hand corner. So I don't want my mountains to be too tall over here. And then I'm going to have my castle is going to be right about here. So I want some of the peaks of my castle to go above my mountains, so I don't want my mountains to go all the way up to the top of my canvas on here. So on my right hand side, I'm gonna, my hill of sorts is gonna be up maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from where I have that vacant canvas to the sky. So I'm just going to make myself a little bit of a marker in through here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom portion because I'm going to have it at the same, this is going to be the reflection down below. So I'm going to be very carefree with mine. On the left hand side, I'm going to have it'll be the highest part of my mountains, and I'm going to have that come about halfway between here and here. So I'm just going to make myself a little marker. So now I have a starting and an ending point. I'm just going to have a whole lot of fun to this. So I'm just going to have maybe a couple just roly-poly coming down in through here, and then maybe when I get down to here, I poke it up a little bit more. Maybe these are a little bit more jagged, then maybe I'll drop it down a bit more in through here. I know that this is about my high point that I want to come, so you can, and you know, I'm just going to kind of keep my finger here. So I know I get excited sometimes. So I'd be like, oh, I want this mountain super tall, but I don't. So I've got to always have my visual markers in place. So if I kind of come up like this, and then maybe I'll have another little peek in through this area, and then maybe I'll have another little one in through here, and now I'm going to go up and do my big one in here. Oh, that looks a little difficult for you guys to see. I'm going to switch to a white pencil for a second so you can see what I did over here. There you go. So now you guys can see everything that I just did. So something like that. So now what I got to do is I've got to transfer this same profile down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do again, I've marked this at the same place. I'll come on this side about halfway between here and here and mark it. I'll mark it with my white pencil so you guys can see it somewhere in through there. And then what I like to do when I'm trying to do a mirror image, sometimes it can get very confusing and difficult because you're trying to work in reverse. So I'm going to pick some very evident spots, make myself a couple of markers, and then I can just kind of connect those markers. So I know this one right here is my lowest point, so I'm going to go directly below that, make myself a little bit of a marker, and then I know that this is going to be my highest one, so this kind of just goes a little bit above there. And if you want to, you can just kind of make little markers, like that's going to be directly below that one, this one's going to be directly below this one, and they kind of are in a staggered way. So I can sit here and go upside down now because the upside down way is the harder way to do it. And then I'm just going to kind of follow what I see here. This is the upside down like this it's the upside down like this. I'm telling you, it's so hard to go upside down. Yeah, that works. And then I've got this coming down here and it goes into here. I've got a couple of little peaks like this. This is going to be a peak here. I just want to make sure I have them pretty lined up. So this goes to here. That's going to be that peak, and then it kind of goes backwards. So now again, I've got like these 3 peaks in through here, but I need to make sure that I don't go too high or too low. So I'm just going to come directly below this one, and I know it is a little bit like this in through here, and now I can go down from there. So this is going to be maybe something like this. This is almost at the same height, something like that, and then this one is a little bit lower. So now that again helps me to just kind of watch, that's a little bit over here, watch these markers, and that will help me to build the reverse image of this, because again, it's really hard to reverse it when you're looking at it from the opposite direction. So, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as you get something that is, again, representational. Just using my white pencil so you guys can see. And then once you've got it the way that you want, you can sit here and fiddle and tweak it all you want, but we will be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your outline of your mountains, you can put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're painting the base coat for our mountains, the top ones and the bottom ones. They're just gonna kind of converge and all be the same type of color scheme. So I'm gonna use my large brush. The colors I'm using are brown, purple, and orange. I'm gonna use all 3 of those colors, and at times I'll be alternating the colors, or I'll use them at the same time on my brush. I just want an assortment of those 3 colors throughout the entire structure. And if you can, use them in a similar pattern from top to bottom, but I'm just going to kind of be mushing them all together, so I'm really not going to be terribly concerned about it being perfect. I'm just really going to try and get a nice coat along the entire structure of my hills. So I am just at this point alternating my orange, my brown, my purple. I suppose if you had a really orange type top over here, you'd want a really orange type top over here, but we are going to be doing another coat over the entire hills. So if you don't get it the exact way that you had been hoping for, don't worry about it. I'm not using any fancy brush stroke at this point. I am just trying to get a base color on here. As I go towards the edges, you can see I'm just going a little bit slower so I can get the color right up to the edges. And then of course, if I used a lot of brown in that area, I'll attempt to do the same thing down at the bottom area, just so they can, again, appear as if they are reflecting one another, but they don't have to be. Again, this is not a step that needs to be perfect because it is really just the base coat for it, but you do want to make sure that you get all the way up to your edges, and if you can keep that, you know, the profile similar to, you know, from the top to bottom, that's great. You can see I'm just using a left to right kind of brush stroke to get these colors to blend in together. As I get over to this right hand side, I'll probably be using more of my orange and my brown, maybe a little bit of, I'll use the purple as well, but I know that this side is my lighter side, so I've got a little bit more of the orange type of tones in it. And again, I'm just getting these colors to kind of overlap so they look like they're just almost blending and merging together, and it's going to be a nice natural type feel to it. But again, keep in mind that this is a fantasy type painting that you can really utilize your imagination to make it into whatever you'd like to. So do not feel the pressure to make it look exactly like mine. If you want to go for something that is entirely purple hills, or, you know, maybe you want your hills to be all, I don't know, blue, feel free to make them into whatever color you'd like. There's definitely no rules when it comes to utilizing our imagination on paintings like this. So I've got this side in through here. That turned into a pretty cool color with the orange and purple on my brush at the same time and through there. Then I'm going to get this bottom area, and then we will be using the same brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your hills in here. Of course, as I'm talking, I'm like, slow down a bit. My brush was going a bit too fast for me. Sometimes when my brush goes too fast, it ends up doing stuff I don't want it to. So I had to slow down here while I'm going around these edges. There we go. And then I'm going to wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our mountains. We're going to be using our large bristle brush, but I do want to forewarn you that before you start this step that you want to make sure this whole area is dry. So, you could take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you could find some kind of fanning method with, your paper towel or blowing on it if you'd like. Or you could do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer. That will definitely get it nice and dry quickly for you. So how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are white, yellow, orange, brown, and probably some purple as well. So no blue or black is what I'm not using in this step. My goal here is to just give a loose interpretation of some high spots and low spots throughout the mountain tops especially. I'm going to make sure that I give a nice finished coat to all of the hills so you don't see too many brush marks per se, but I want to have some light areas and some dark areas. So to me, my light source, where the brightest part of my canvas is in through here. So when I'm working on these right mountains, I'm going to have a light spot at the top left of wherever I want a little hill to appear. And my dark side is going to be on the opposing. And all the ones on this side, I'm going to have a light spot on the right side of those peaks and of any other little hills that I want. And I'm going to do both the top and the bottom at the same time. So if I make a light spot here, I'll make a light spot here. If I do it here, I'll do it here. And I'll just keep going through it in that manner. I'm never going to have a lot of paint on my brush, so I always will be able to kind of blend it out and make it make sense for me. So as I go through, I'll call out my colors, but at times I might go, oh, my brush goes faster than my brain does. So right now what I'm going to start with is a little bit of orange, yellow, and white on my brush at the same time, and I just wiped it off on my paper, on my palette, so that way that ensures that I don't have too much paint on my brush. So if I want to have a light spot in through here, I'm just going to kind of give myself a couple of light spots there, a couple of light spots in the opposing spot down below, and then you can just kind of rub them in to that hill if you'd like to, and that way that's going to give you a nice bright spot on that side of the peak of the hill. And I'm just going to kind of go through all of them in this manner, and I will add some extra bits of information as I go through, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that as well. But whenever I do it on the top, I'm going to do it at the bottom, and I'm also, if I feel like I have too much paint, I wipe it off on my paper towel and then just get this to kind of blend in through here. I'm going to kind of, I guess, work my way from my right to my left just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to put a little bit of my brown or my purple, orange, and white on my brush right now just to make sure that I've got maybe all of these hills have a full coat on them. So I don't have much paint on my brush right now, just kind of giving myself a little bit more information on these hills so they don't end up looking too streaky, I guess is the word I'm searching for. I want to make sure that I have good coverage to them. So orange, purple, and a little bit of white. I'm not terribly concerned about the center of these hills because I know that those are going to be all kind of covered up by various other things, like the castle is going to be covering them. There's going to be some mist and all kinds of other stuff. So, but I do want to make sure that I've got enough of the hill painted. So I just put a little bit of brown and purple on my brush to get these dark sides of the hill. If I want those to be any darker, I can just add a little bit of brown and purple to get those to come out and be a little bit darker. And then I'm just kind of rubbing my brush to make sure that I've got that all nice and taken care of. So I'm reloading my brush with a little bit of orange, yellow, and white. I'm starting over, gonna work my way to the left, so I'm gonna add a little bit in through there. And if you want a hill to just kind of travel a little bit further into the landscape, you can just kind of pull it out like that. So if I want this, the front of this one to look like it's further, I just pull it out a little bit like that. I've got this one in through here, and then I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel, just kind of rubbing it out into the next hill. So this way, now it looks like there's a little bit of a front of a hill in front of the other one. And you can just kind of play with how those hills are forming themselves. They don't all have to be exactly like mine. You can certainly have fun with forming yours whatever way you want to. So again, if I want one to just kind of come out, I can put that highlight on it and then just kind of bring it down in through here. I'll do the same thing for this one in the reflection to make sure it looks pretty similar, and just rub it out like this. I'm just kind of rubbing the remnants of my brush onto the canvas like that. That looks pretty good. I need to kind of finish these dark spots in through here, so I'm going to go a little purple and brown just to make sure this back side of this hill is nice and finished. So that works out for me. And of course, I just want my hills to look like they all belong together. These are looking pretty good. I'm going to put a little bit of my purple, orange, and white just to get the base part of the hill to make sure that I'm not missing any. And again, I'm not concerned about that center area because it's going to be covered with a bunch of other information. So orange, yellow, and white, I'm going ahead and adding another little tip to this hill, and that's going to be this one in through here, and then maybe this one in through here kind of comes down a little bit further. So I'm doing two at a time on this one. I got this little back one there, and then this one is coming down a little bit further. And again, my hills don't have to be the same exact as yours. You just want to get them on so you feel comfortable with what has happened. I just put a little bit of purple on the dark side of this one. You can play with those colors as much as you want to. And then I have this big one over here. I think I'm going to use a little bit less white, so this almost looks like it's going a little bit further away, and it's not being illuminated as much by that by the light source that I have over here. I'm going to bring this one down a little bit further, so then when I go ahead and do this one, I make sure that I bring it down a little bit further as well. And then you can keep tweaking these as much as you want to. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more of this softer purpley color back here, so it looks like that front section is really being illuminated by the light source. And then once you've got this all nice and done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So you can just kind of have fun with tweaking these as much as you want to. You can get them as light or as dark as you want to. And then you will want to wash and dry this brush. Yeah, that's looking nice. And get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting our land that's going to sit behind our castle island. So this is in essence going to be directly across the center of our canvas. I'm going to be using my large brush and I'm going to be using black paint. So this is intended to just kind of look like land that's being silhouetted by whatever moody light source that we have going on here. And it's also going to help to visually separate the top portion of our canvas from the bottom portion of our canvas and let our castle kind of come out into the foreground. So I'm going to load my brush with a little bit of black. You don't need a lot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find kind of the halfway point of my canvas on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. And it's just a visual marking point for me because, again, I get excited and I just go and think I know what I'm doing, and then if I don't have somewhere to go, I end up screwing it up. So this gives me my line that I want. So now that I have this, I'm going to do a very loose, kind of sketchy, dry brush kind of line going across. And now that I've got that on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make some almost the silhouette of like bushes, so to speak. I don't need any in through here. This is going to be where my castle is. So I'm going to put a little bit over here, coming up maybe about 2 inches or so, and I'm just rubbing my brush into that middle line, and then I create a similar marking right underneath it. So this is going to end up being the top of, the land portion, and then this will be its reflection. If you feel like you need to reload a little bit with paint, go right ahead, just dab it on your paper towel or something so you don't have too much. And then on the right hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. You can have these formed as big or as small as you want, but I'm having mine taller on the exterior, and they're going to get more narrow as they come towards the center of my canvas. So I've got just a little bit of black paint on my brush, and you can go one bush / tree at the top to the bottom, or you can do all of the top and then all the bottom, whatever works best in your painterly brain. So I'm going to go here, maybe I'll have one in through here, maybe I'll have another one in through here, and you can probably hear that my brush is very dry right about now. And I just don't want this center line to be a real distinct line. So if you get to the edge where you feel like you're done putting some on there, just soften, if you need to, soften those edges a little bit. That would be great. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the reflection on in through here. And then we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your land on here, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our castle. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors that I'm using are purple, brown, orange, yellow, and white, and I'm pre-mixing myself a kind of a neutral base coat that is going to provide me with a nice background color to build this castle from. So the color I'm going for is right here. This is kind of like in my opinion, kind of like a muted creamy tan color. So how I got there to complement my painting was I used purple, orange, yellow, brown, and white, and mixed it all together until I got this really nice natural neutral tone that I can utilize for my base coat of my castle. Yours does not have to be exactly the same as mine. You can make it more brown, you can make it more orange, more yellow, whatever color you would like is totally fine. You just want to kind of spin it until you get a nice consistent color. That's looking good. It's looking pretty similar to this one. And then once you've got the color that you want, I'm going to guide you through making a basic, I would say, kind of exterior shape for our castle with its reflection. So we'll do it in a fun kind of step-by-step way where we're just going to be drawing some lines and we're going to make some shapes and we'll fill them in. And by the time we're done, we'll have a nice structure that we'll be able to create some detail on and make a fancy castle. So what I've done is I've loaded my brush with that color. I'm going to do a series of vertical lines that are going to represent the top points to my castle. So my first one is just about almost halfway into my canvas. I'm maybe a little bit to the left of my canvas, and I'm up from here, maybe I would say about 2 or 3 inches or so. That's where my first one's going to go. I'm going to create a vertical line that comes straight down and crosses into my water about as far as I did that one. So when you're doing this, you just kind of want to make sure that you are keeping it pretty vertical and not going tipping it left to the right too much. You don't have to make it perfect at this point. I am trying to keep it a little bit pointy at the top and the bottom, but that's not necessary at this point. I'll show you how to disguise the tops and the bottoms if yours aren't very pointy. I'm going to do my second one is going to be maybe to the left of this one, about 1.5 inches and just a little bit lower than it. So again, I'm just going to kind of draw myself a vertical line, something like this, and then I'm going to cross over into my water. And because it's shorter than this one, I want it to be shorter than the one over here. So I need to reload my brush here and just get it to make sure that I've got it at the distance that I want. So something like that. And again, you can see mine are not perfectly straight at this point. That is all right. My next one is going to be maybe about 2 inches to the left of here and almost maybe halfway between the top of my canvas and my mountain range. And again, just making myself a long vertical line, something like this, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it into the water at about the same width away from the end of my canvas, something like that. And then let's see, I'm going to have a couple more coming over to the left, but they're much shorter. So I'm going to have this one maybe, I would say 1 inch to the left and maybe about half the distance between the top of my hill and here. So maybe about in through here, and then I'm just going to draw myself this vertical line somewhere in through here. And again, if you can get the corners, the edges to point, great. If not, no worries. I'm going to do maybe 2 more in through here. These are much shorter, so maybe somewhere in through here I'll draw one. And again, I'm just crossing it over into the bottom section at about, where I feel is appropriate. And then I've got one more coming, I would say, in through here. And I think I might do one more in the middle of the castle. Maybe somewhere in through here. I think I want another one. So these are again going to represent the points of the top of the castle. So once I have those in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a series of, we'll just call them rectangles at this point. So I'm going to come, I would say maybe 1 inch above here and create a horizontal line, do the same thing down in through here, and then just color this box in with that color. So something like this. And you'll see when we get done this, it just magically looks like a castle. Unless I had a bunch of paint on my brush on that one. So then the next one I'm going to connect this one to this one, but I'm going to leave this little point sticking up in through here. So something like this. And then I'll do the same thing down here. So you just want to make sure that you don't get lost in your castle, which I guess would be kind of fun, right? If we got lost in our castles. And then you're just going to paint this whole section in with that base color. So something like this, making sure that I've got good coverage in through there. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just said good coverage, but it does not have to be perfect coverage because we've got a whole lot of other details that we're going to be putting on top of this. So just know that this is not the end all be all for this. So then I'm going to do another one from this one to here, only it's going to be a little bit shorter than this one, and maybe somewhere in through here would work. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing down at the bottom. And then I'm just coloring in my box, something like this. So you can see how quickly our information behind the castle has disappeared and was not that important. But I like to do the full backgrounds before I start putting objects on top. So that way I don't ever have to worry about painting around and worrying about if I missed a spot. I'm going to do another small one between these two. So this one I think I'll have going. Actually, I think I'm going to cross this one over these two. So I think I'll go right to here, and then even go over the edge of that one. So I'll do the same thing down in through here, here to here, and then cross over, and then just paint in this entire section. And then I need to widen my my towers, my castle towers. So how I'm going to do that, now that I've got the idea of where they all are going to be, I want them to be pointy at the top and a little bit more narrow or excuse me, pointy at the top and a little bit wider as they hit the main structure. So how I do this is I'm going to start at the tippy top of my point, and then I push my brush harder as I come down, and it just makes itself its own little triangle. And then when I go to do the bottom one, I start at the bottom, and then I just push my brush a little bit harder. And you might have to adjust it a little bit, or you can push your brush kind of hard to start at the, you know, if you're doing it this way, and then lift off your pressure as you get towards the tip of it. So I'm just going to go kind of methodical through these. I'll start there, push a little bit harder, and then when I get down to the bottom, I can start pushing hard like this and then just let off on my pressure. So you could, I guess, flip, you know, do them all the top ones, then flip your canvas over to get the bottom ones. Whatever works best for you is totally fine. So I'll start here with the tip and then just push my brush to get that wider area. And then I'm just going to kind of keep going through them all. So I have a not a very steady hand. So when I'm doing stuff like this, I am constantly resting my hand or my wrist or my pinky on my canvas. So today I'm finding myself resting my wrist on my easel. So you know, if you have a unsteady hand as I do, you may find that you need to adopt some kind of method in order to help your hand stay steady. And if you're using a wider or more narrow brush than I am, you might want to go up or down these a couple of times if you want them to have more width to them. But I'm finding that I'm enjoying the width that I'm getting from these, so I'm just going to kind of keep going here and getting the rest of these done. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got all, actually hold that thought. I do want to do a couple more things on a couple more details on this before we go on to the next step. I was looking at it and I'm like, maybe we should put the little buttons on the top first. You know what? I think I am gonna. No, I won't turn my canvas up. I was gonna turn it upside down because it seems like these would be definitely much easier for me to do upside down. But I'll just continue on this way and get them to be nice and pointy. And if I need to do any little tweaks, I will. But the reflection part is not as important to get nice and perfect because it's going to have lots of reflective pieces of the water in it, and we can disguise the bottom a little bit more than we can the top if the bottom doesn't go exactly as planned. And then I think I want to add a couple of little a little staircase perhaps, and a little couple little towers on my castle before I'm done with this step. So if you can embellish it whatever way you want. So if I wanted like a little staircase, I can just take this color and just make a diagonal line like that and a couple of vertical lines going in through here. And then whatever I do at the top, I've got to mimic at the bottom too. So I can do my diagonal line like this, and then I had 3 vertical lines, 1, 2, 3, and now I've got a staircase. If I wanted to have a little lookout tower, I could go and do a horizontal line and a couple of little vertical lines that'll indicate that there's a little lookout tower. So you can really have fun. I'm going to put maybe a little detail and some buttons or some balls at the top of my castle. The balls at the top of the castle are, of course, everything I'm doing is optional. You don't have to do anything the same that I'm doing, but these are just going to provide some neat little detail throughout it that really make it give that castle kind of feel. So I'm going to put maybe a couple more buttons on here, and I think that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to make sure that I do the same thing down in my reflection. So I've got a little button on this one. I've got this kind of straight piece in through here. And any kind of markings that you want to make will, like I said, enhance the detail aspect of it. And once you've got this step done, we are going to use this same small brush for the next step. So you can just, oops, I need my little lookout tower here in the reverse. Make sure I don't forget about that one. And then I'm going to wash and dry my small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're painting the base coat for our fairy body. I'm gonna be using my small brush. The colors that I'm using are purple, orange, and a little bit of black. So what I'm doing is I'm pre-mixing myself, again, a nice complementary color for the painting, but I really want it to be pretty dark. So this is the color I'm going for in through here. And how I got to that was I mixed some of my purple, some of my orange, just mixed those together until you've got a color that you like. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same color as mine. And then just add a tiny drop of black into it to get it to be on the darker side. So this way it is nice and complementary to what you have throughout the painting. And once you've got what you want, we are going to make ourselves a little outline. So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that my brush is in control and that I have nice skinny lines throughout this. So I'm going to actually take my brush and dip it in water and thin this paint out a little bit. So it's almost like an ink consistency. And I take my brush and just kind of spin it around in there so it's nice and thin. And then once I've got it, the consistency that I want, I take my brush and I spin it on the side of my palette so my brush is nice and pointy. You could use your pencil to do the outline first if you'd like to, and then come back through with the paint, but I'm gonna just kind of go for it kind of painter, so I'm gonna go for it. So my fairy is gonna be in this vicinity. She's about maybe 3 to 4 inches long, and I'm gonna initially start by just making a diagonal line. So the top or the tip of her head, I'm gonna be putting right in this vicinity. So this is almost halfway between the top and bottom of my canvas. It's maybe about, I don't know, 5 inches over from the left. And then the tip of the toe is going to be down in this vicinity, right in through here. So I just wanted to make myself a little tiny marker in through there. And now I'm just going to connect those two with a diagonal line. I'm not going to push hard with my brush just so I can have a nice slender line. I'm just watching my opposing mark to make sure that I get it at that marker. So something like this. And I'm hardly touching my canvas so I don't push too hard. So now what I'm going to do, and again, you could use a smaller brush too if you wanted to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building the shape of her body. So this is in essence her back leg, and I'm going to start, if this is her head, I'm going to have her waist, or where her rear end starts, is going to be just shy of the halfway mark, so somewhere in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I have a butt, a thigh, a calf, and a foot is what's going to end up being created on this back leg. So my butt is going to be the biggest, so of the bumps. So it's going to go somewhere in through here. So I've got my bum. Then I have my back thigh, and this is going to come down about halfway, somewhere in through there. Then I have my calf. So your calf can be as big or as small as you want. It could look like your thigh. It could be pointier. And then I have my foot. So my foot is just going to be the little heel, and then it goes into the point of the toe. So you could, certainly manipulate that as much as you want and reshape it all you want. It doesn't have to be super curvy. It can be, a very slender type of shape if you wanted to. Then I have the leg, the front part of this leg doesn't have to be a whole lot. I'm just going to kind of thicken it a little bit up by the thigh, but not much at all, just so it's not too slender or too straight on the front side of it. So just something like that will work. And then I have the leg that comes out in through the other side. So this in essence is going to start where her hip is. It's the bottom part of her thigh is going to be with the bottom part of her bum. So you can kind of bring that out in through that direction. Then I want her knee to be out in through here, but her foot is going to meet the knee on the other leg, or somewhere about the knee on the other leg. So I can in essence just draw myself a diagonal line from this knee, or from that knee to the other knee, something like this. Just bring it out in through here, and then I can give myself the thigh of the other leg, like this. And that will give me a good proportion if I just kind of connected those two. And then once I've got that on there, then I can just give her a little bit of a calf muscle in through here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can certainly reshape it as you see fit. And then her other foot is just going to be hiding behind that, the knee of the other leg. And then what I'm going to do is I've got to give her a torso and a head. So the head I know is going to be right in through here. So I'm going to start with the head, so that way I put my shoulder in the right place. My head is not going to be very big, and it needs to kind of be looking like it is facing the castle itself. So I'm just putting it a little circle on an angle like this right now. Then I'm going to give a little bit of a shoulder in through here, and then just kind of bring it down and make it gradually blend in with the rear end, something like that. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because we're going to have wings and we're going to have hair and all kinds of other stuff to cover it. The front part of the body is going to have an arm that comes out. So the arm is going to come out towards the castle, like she's blowing. So I'm going to have this coming from the shoulder in a kind of a downward diagonal line like this. If I look at where my shoulder to my elbow is, my elbow comes almost down to my waist. So if her waist is in this vicinity, that's about as long from her shoulder as you want that front part of her arm. So I'm going to have, or the forearm. So I'm going to have it somewhere in through there. And then I'm going to have the forearm to the wrist is going to come in this direction, something like this. And then I can thicken it whatever way I want to. So if I know I want her to, of course, have a bicep of sorts in through here, so just thicken that a little bit. And then her hand, I just am going to have her thumb and her fingers curved at a little bit of a angle towards the castle. So something like this, and then just a little thumb in through there. And I'm going to have stuff being, her fairy dust is going to be blowing. So if you do anything and you're like, oh, that was too much or too little, we can disguise it with fairy dust. So just know that you have the opportunity to do that as well at the end. And then I need to give her a chest. So I'm going to take this and just kind of give her a little bit of a feminine chest in through there, and then make the front part of the body however you want it to be. Maybe you want yours to be more fuller or more slender, or whatever you imagine it to be. I think I want her arm a little bit bigger in through here, so you might end up continuing to adjust it just a little bit more fingers in through there. I'm going to give her a touch of a chin as well. So this chin is going to look down a little bit further towards the castle. Maybe a little tiny nose in through there as well. And then I'm going to put her hair on, put a little forehead hair, and then her hair is going to just kind of ride down the back of her body, and it can flip up. You can really have it whatever way you want. Again, we're going to have all kinds of wings and stuff on here, and then just kind of keep doing any little tweaks that you feel are necessary. We will put her wings on and all of the other little special things in a little bit. We're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your fairy on here, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first step for our fairy reflection. So I'm going to use my small brush and I'm going to use the same color that I did for the base coat of the fairy in the sky. So I want you to be able to see as we're doing this the one in the sky as well, because we need to kind of mimic her shape down in the water. But when we're working in the water, to me, she is closer to us than the castle is. So the placement in the water might be a little bit different just based on where we are, our perspective on her. But what I do want to hold true is where the height of her head is based on the height of the top of the castle. So I can see that she's a little bit taller than this one and a little bit shorter than this one. So I'm going to come directly below her head, somewhere in through here, find this top of this piece and go just a bit past it. That's where I'm going to have the top of her head be, and then the length of her I can measure with my brush. So I can just kind of measure with my brush, do at a similar angle that I see her up in the sky, make myself a little bit of a marker, and then just connect those two with that diagonal line. And as I'm working on her in the water, in the reflection, I'm not as concerned about everything being as perfectly proportioned and as perfectly executed as it was up in the sky, because that one to me should be a little bit more executed and whoops, almost lost my brush there, and a little bit more proportionately accurate. But down in the water, it can certainly be, take on some ripples from the water or whatever other elements might kind of disguise it a little bit or make it a little bit warped in any sense. And then I just kind of thicken up the front of her. But again, I'm not as concerned about this reflection being exactly perfect, but I am going to try and give it a pretty similar feel. So I'm just going through the same construction process that I did when I did the one up top. So I'm connecting her straight knee to her bent knee to her thigh, and then I'm going to give her a little bit of a calf in through here and something like that. And then of course I've got her midsection to contend with. She's got a little chest in through here, and then I need to put her head on. But again, I'm not going for exact mirror image here, just doing something that I feel is a good representation down in the water with whatever little ripples might be occurring in that water. And then I think I gotta do her arm. And then we are going, I got her hair, right? I got her hair, the back of her head, a little bit of a chin maybe, somewhere like that. And then of course I've got her arm. It's pretty difficult to do this in reverse. So this is why when I did the first one, I really had a structure and a process to what I did. So as I'm doing this bottom one, I'm saying, okay, her forearm is about the length to her waist, her knee does this, her shoulders do that, and that way, because I have those same thoughts in my head as I'm doing this reflection, I can do a pretty similar look to it, even though it is in the water and it is upside down. So that's that, and I am going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your reflection in the water in kind of a carefree way, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our castle and its reflection. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use this dark maroon color that we used on our fairy. I will also be using black, orange, yellow, and white. And of course you can certainly mix up any, you might even use some more of this base color that we used for the castle as well. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be putting some silhouetted pieces of the castle on first. So we're going to be putting some very dark areas onto the castle. So I am going to be using my maroon color from my fairy and adding a tiny bit of black into it. So I'm creating a darker shade that is, when it dries, going to be really pretty dark, almost black, but not quite black. So I've got it pretty darn dark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some shapes and color them in. So what I'm going to do for my first shape is I'm making a rectangle in between here. I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge. And again, whatever I do on the top, I'm doing on the bottom as well. And then I'm just coloring it in. I'm bringing this one to, I would say, the edge of this piece in through here. But again, once you see what I'm doing, you could completely modify yours to whatever formation that you would like. Then I'm going to take this same color and I'm going to add a dark area in through right next to it. So I'm going to go just a little bit higher than this one and a little bit lower than this one and come over maybe to about here, something like that. So I'm making a bunch of shapes right now. And once I've got that one on in through there, I'm going to do we're going to call it the side of the building. So I'm going to make a diagonal line like that, a diagonal line like this, a vertical line, and color that part in. And you'll see when I get done this whole thing how much this all makes sense. But right now it might not make a ton of sense. I'm going to paint this peak in through here. This one's going to be a nice dark one. So I'm going to turn this from a light color to a dark color and go all the way down to its reflective peak, or I don't know what they would be called, tower, the castle tower in through here. And again, just making this one nice and dark. Now that I've got that one, I think I'm going to have another maybe low-lying piece of dark part of the castle in through here. So I'm just really kind of going through this center area and making some silhouetted in the shadow, really dark pieces of the castle. I'm going to have another internal kind of peak to my castle somewhere in through here, and I'll do the same thing. Just think of a nice triangle. So we're making a lot of triangles and rectangles, and it's going to magically make for this super cool castle. I'm going to do another internal piece somewhere in through here, and then maybe I'll have another dark little peak right in through here, and then another one in through here. This is so much fun. It's just like, you know, I'm back in geometry class making a whole bunch of different shapes. And then I think I'm going to have a nice dark piece over on this edge and through here. And again, you can really have, as you know, your pieces whatever way you want. I'm going to have, now that I've got that main structure in, I'm going to have some dark pieces along the left side of these top structures, as well as underneath to create little shadows. So I'm going to take my small brush and kind of give myself some shadows and some streaks of darkness down the left side of these tower type pieces. And I'm just going to continue. I'm going to come down on this one, and whatever you do on the top, you got to do. Oh, I want to do a little kind of shadow area on the left there. So I'm thinking shadows are going to be on the left, and whatever I do on the top portion, I'm going to come down and do it on the bottom portion in the reflection as well. So I've got this dark piece over here on the edge. And sometimes when you're doing these smaller lines like this, if you add a tiny bit of water into your brush, you'll be able to get a smoother line to it. But again, we're just going for a fun fantasy kind of painting, so we don't need this to be, you know, perfectly executed. And I'm just adding a little bit of more paint to my brush. I think I'm going to have, maybe these are going to be a little bit different of a color, and in through here I think I'm going to have a nice maybe I need a little shadow up here though. I need a little shadow there and a little, this is definitely the dark side of the castle, so the left-hand side. So wherever you feel like you need to put a nice shadow, go ahead and do so. We are gonna have like a medium tone that we're gonna add in a second, but right now I'm just kind of getting these little bits of details, these shadowy kind of details in through here. And then I will add my other medium tone kind of color to it. So just adding all these little bits of detail, making sure that I keep these shadows on the left-hand side where I want them to be. And again, I'm using a pretty dark color here, so this way it really reads as nice and moody, and it's got this dark aura to it with a beautiful fairy coming in to give it its fairy dust and make it nice and magical, or you know, mystical, whatever you want it to associate it as. And then let's see here, almost got all my dark pieces in. And then I think I've got a little bit more maybe over on this side and a little bit in through here. So now that I've got what I feel to be all of as many really dark areas as I want, I'm going to go into my my fairy color, that maroon, and I'm going to add some other color to the castle. So I've got my fairy color, and this is almost allowing me to gradually get it into that lighter area, which is going to be the area that is towards the light source. So I'm coming back through and adding a bit of this fairy color onto a lot of these pieces of the structure. Some of these, like this, I'm considering to be like a little rooftop, and you don't have to add it 100%. I'm kind of using it in a loose, sketcherly kind of way to just get that additional color onto the castle. And I'm going to consider again some of these as rooftops. I think I wanted a little bit more of a roof in through there, so I will change that in a second. But you can have fun with this. I mean, this is intended to be something that you know have created in your own fantasy mind, and you can really get it to be as intricate as you want, or as kind of having a simple design to it, but maybe you have a simple design and a lot of sparkles, so you can really get it to look whatever way that you want it to. It's really how you are perceiving it to be. I think I'm going to add a little rooftop in through there, but I'll get to that in a second. And then I'm going to add a little bit more darkness back in through here. And there's going to be some highlights that will illuminate each of these pieces and allow them to have some lights in them as well. So we'll do some rooftops and some lights and all kinds of fun stuff in a second here. I just want to get a good amount of this little bit darker of a maroon color throughout it. And now I'm going to start adding some roofs. So I'm going to use that original color that I used to just kind of outline a little bit here. Maybe this is where I'm going to bring in a little bit of yellow and white to get a little bit more of a evident type of structure on top. This is a roof to this little piece in through here. And then if I want there to have roofs in other spots, I can utilize that same kind of color combination. And maybe I have the appearance of the tip of the roof in through here that's just being illuminated a little bit by that light source over there. And then maybe I take these lighter colors. So I'm using on my brush right now a combination of the orange, yellow, and white, and this is providing me with the color combination that is giving me these highlighted pieces within the structure. And again, whatever I do up top, I'm just translating that down to the structure below. I'm going to be putting some lights in places. So if I want some lights, I'm just putting yellow and white on my brush, and you can really just decorate it the way that you want. So I've got yellow and white, and I can put some lights going around the edge. And again, you got to do whatever you do up top, you've got to just emulate down below. So you just want to make sure that you've got a similar type look and feel to it. I definitely want to make sure that I have little pockets of highlights along the edges of the pieces of on the right hand side that are nearing the light source. So I can just go down any one of the right hand sides, and you can use a combination of that original color that we used. You can use orange and white, you can use orange, yellow, and white, wherever your visual preference is. Again, you can add lights wherever you want. I think I'm going to have a couple of lights in through here. We are going to, just so you plan yours properly, this whole center section in through here, you don't really need to pay too much attention to it, because you're going to have fog and mist that's going to be encapsulating that whole center area. So I wouldn't spend too much time in there, just kind of getting the information on there that you want. But again, you don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on it. If I want there to be maybe some windows coming down in through here, I can add them in through here like this. And again, you don't need to do anything too fancy. If you wanted a separation between some buildings, you can put a little bit of black between them. That will get them to pop out in front of the other one. I think I want maybe a little bit more highlight on these taller towers. So I'm adding that orange, yellow, and white, and maybe just popping in these bright streaks of highlights in through here, just to make sure that we see that they are being illuminated. I'm staying away from these dark ones because those are in the shadow. We put those ones there to represent the dark areas of the castle that are being hidden in the shadows behind the taller pieces of the castle. So you can keep tweaking yours, have fun with the intensity of your highlights and your shadows. Again, as you get towards this left side of the castle, I wouldn't go too crazy with the brightness or the details of it, because you're going to be a lot of it is going to be hidden within that fog, and you could of course do tweaks and modifications and stuff after you put the fog on there. But at this point, I'm feeling pretty good with my castle. So I am going to actually be using, we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your beautiful castle details on here, and you've bent it and twisted it and shaped it as much as you want to, you can put your small brush away wherever you'd like to. Or not put it away, wash it and dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are finishing the fairy and her reflection. So I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to be using that maroon color, maybe a little bit of black, white, definitely, and a little bit of yellow, orange, and white as well. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to kind of finish her body and the little fairy dust that's coming off, and then we'll put her wings on there. So in essence, the right side of her is the darkest and the left side is the lightest. So I can use some of even the original color that I had, plus a little bit of black if I wanted to, and just make sure that that right hand side is definitely, oh, I just made her leg grow a little bit, is definitely dark enough. So if you felt that yours was already dark enough and you didn't want to go any further with it, then you can certainly just leave it the way that it is. But if you want to add that bit of a bit more dimensional element to it, you could certainly come in and add a bit more darkness, maybe a little darkness underneath there, maybe a little bit in through here, and then you can utilize the original color that you had on her just to make sure that you've got all of the areas colored in. And adding, in this step, I'll add a little bit of a highlight on that side that's towards the light source. So you can wipe your brush off or wash it or dry it, whatever you want. I'm using orange, yellow, and a tiny bit of white on my brush, and I'm going to give her a little bit of just an ever so little tiny bit of a highlight in through here, maybe along her belly and through here, and then a touch on her arm maybe and through here. And I'm just really adding the tiniest of bit, little bit on the front of her head, maybe a touch on her nose a bit. So I mean, you might want to use a smaller brush, just something that gives you that little information that she's being illuminated by that light source that's in front of her, which could be coming from her fairy dust. That light source can be coming from anywhere. So her fairy dust, I'm going to do that right now. I just put some of her body color on my brush without washing it. And I'm literally just going to make these tiny little polka dots coming off of her hand, maybe coming up in a little bit of a way, and then kind of drifting off towards the castle like this. And I'm going to wipe my brush off and pick up white and include white along those dots as well. So this is going to be a little bit of both. The reason why I'm using both colors is so you have diversity in how it looks, and so it also has a dimensional element to it. So you could have as much fairy dust as you want. You could have yours sparkling all over the place. You could use different colors. You could, whatever you want your fairy dust to look like. It's your fairy dust. You make it as exciting as you would like to. And once I've got the fairy dust on, now I'm going to put her wings and her clothing of sorts. So I'm just going for some of that original fairy color that we had to put them in place. Now when I'm doing these wings and her clothing, I'm thinking that they're see-through. So I'm going to use that color plus water on my brush. Not much, I just dipped it a little bit in the water and then I tapped it on my paper towel. I'm going to have her wings are going to be coming kind of right off of where her shoulder blades are. And I'm thinking that these are very light and airy, and they just kind of are going to be floating off of her back. She's going to have two kind of in this vicinity, and then I'm going to have one coming off of maybe her shoulder blade in through here, maybe in this direction. And then once I've got them in place, I just kind of utilize the moisture on my brush to bring some little ends of them out, almost like feathers. So I'm just kind of bringing these in this direction like feathers, but you could of course do yours in whatever formation that you want, but I'm just going for a very light, airy, feathery kind of look. Once I've got them in place, I can I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with her clothing. And again, it's that original color plus water on my brush. So her clothing, I'm going to have kind of draping over her from her waist. It's going to go over her leg, and you need to have water along in your brush in order for this to be see-through. And if it's not see-through enough, you can put more water on your brush. Just tap it on your paper towel so it doesn't end up dripping down your canvas. And I'm going to have her piece of clothing going all the way back, kind of flowing in the wind, something like this, or floating in the air. And once I've got it on there, I want to add a little bit of white to it. So again, I'm not washing my brush, and I'm picking up white with a touch of water on my brush so I can add those highlights in the front of it. So I've got some highlights over in through here, kind of on the front side of those wings and coming in through here. You could, I suppose, even put a little bit on the tips of the wings too, just to show that they have a little bit more dimensionality to them. So it's totally up to you. Maybe her clothing on her body's got a little bit of that sheer white look to it as well. So as I'm doing the clothing over her body, I want there to almost appear like there's ripples to it. So I will be putting some of this watered down white along over her midsection in through here, and that provides me with that translucent look of like a sheer piece of clothing. And then once I've got this on here, I'm going to go ahead and just do the reflection of it really quick, because it doesn't need to be anything really detail oriented down in the reflection. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of darkness over on the bottom side, which would be the side farthest away from the light source. Then I'll pick up some of that original color for her, make sure it just kind of blends in. Now I'm adding the orange, yellow, and white for a bit of a highlight of sorts over on the side of her body that is nearest to the light source. And when I do this, again, I'm not doing much, just tapping in these tiny little light spots that are going to tell the viewer where that light source is coming from. I think I put maybe a little bit down here too, maybe not. And then I'm picking up some of the of her original color and gonna put my fairy dust coming off of her hand into here, because she's blowing it right towards the castle. And again, I'm watching where it lands here, so that way I can make it kind of go in a similar direction down in the water reflection. Now I'm going to pick up some of my white to put some white within the fairy dust as well, the fairy dust reflection. And again, it doesn't have to be 100%. We've got one more step to this water, so if you do your fairy dust and it's like, oh, that was a lot of fairy dust in the water, don't worry, we'll have a step where you can kind of disguise it a little bit in the water. And then once I've got my fairy dust on there, I'm going to put some wings on her. So washing and drying my brush, picking up that dark maroon color and going for some wings. So this is from her shoulder blades, and they might end up going off the canvas a little bit, maybe not. We'll see how this works out. And again, I've got a little bit of water on my brush to help keep this nice and fluid and a little bit see-through. I've got this one coming off of her back, going in through here. Now I'm going to put those little feathery marks on it. And of course, I'm going much quicker in the water because, again, it doesn't have to be as fully rendered as it was up top. And then I'm going to put some clothing on her. So again, just using that color to give me some shape to her fairy dress, I guess is a good word for it. And then just making sure it looks like it is floating off in the wind, something like this. And then I'll add that bit of see-through kind of white highlight to it. So just using some watered down white paint to get my highlights on my wings. Just trying to keep my hand out of the way here. Sometimes it gets a little difficult when I'm doing this so you guys can see it. So if it gets a little clunky sometimes, I apologize. And then we've got a little bit in through here. And then of course I've got this beautiful fairy dress that I want to put on. So again, just that see-through white, and I'm just giving it the illusion that it is in fact reflecting what we're seeing up top. So just kind of streaking in a little bit of this translucent white paint that we've got, giving it up her body a little bit and then floating in the wind. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your fairy finished with her reflection, you can put the small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're putting our fog on. So I'm going to be using my large brush. I'm going to be using blue, black, and white paint. The biggest tip that I can give you for this is never use a lot of paint. If you pick up a whole bunch of paint and you start trying to put this fog on here, you're going to cover up all of what you just did. So it's better to use less paint, and you can even thin it out with a little bit of water, a little bit of liquid medium. Use a firm brush so that way you can push that paint where you want to. But using a firm brush doesn't mean that you have to push super duper hard, because sometimes when you're doing this type of technique, if you push really hard, you end up almost making like a little hole within that paint. So use a firm brush, but you can, if your paint is thin enough, you can maneuver it around. So I want this to almost look like it's an island of sort. So when I go to do my main fog area, I'm going to have it dropping down a little bit from this center line. So I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But how I'm going to build this fog or mist of sorts is from the dark to the light. So when I start it, I'm going to be using almost a gray type of color, and then as I work my way towards the lighter areas, it'll be not necessarily white. I'll have a little bit of white, but I'm also going to be using a little bit of the blue to make it stand out from the rest of the landscape, and also kind of complement the blue, a little bit of the blue we put in the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch my brush a little bit in the blue, a tiny bit in the black, and a tiny bit in the white, and wipe it off on the side of my palette. So I've in essence kind of blended those three colors together on my brush on the side of my palette. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch my brush in my water like that, and then just dab it on my paper towel like this. So I'm going to, in essence, kind of initially just make myself a line, and then we'll build it up after that. So I'm going to start at the bottom of this section in through here, and I'm just going to kind of go left to right. And you don't have to go all the way to the edge of your canvas. We're going to have a whole bunch of mist in this area anyways. And then I'm going to go over towards this side and just kind of go in through here, because this is going to build that island look, because I'm making it go, dropping it down past that center of this back landscape. So I'm just kind of getting this on here so I know where I want this mist or fog to really accumulate and be the thickest and the most evident right in front of the castle. And we're going to bring it further into the water too, but I just want to start it like this. I also want to put a little of this around the back side of the castle. So I'm just going to kind of tap my brush in some of these little crevices just to give the appearance of there being some fog over on the other side. If you feel like you're running out of paint or you can't even really see it, then definitely you'll want to add a little bit more to your brush, but you can, less is better. You can always add more. It's tough to take it off once it's there. So just to add a little bit at a time if you want to, and you can get it to go as high behind it as you want or as low, whatever, wherever your comfort zone is totally cool. And then again, this adding a little bit behind it is going to give it a real fantastic illusion that this is really set in front and providing a great visual effect. So I want to also see the where the water meets that landscape. So I'm also going to be putting a line in through here. So this should be up a little bit from where you did this one. And if it is, that's going to give you that visual effect. So I'm just going right across like this. Once I've got it on there, I can have a nice firm line at the top, but I'm going to just take my brush and go left to right to bring this into this water area a little bit. So that way we've got the start of almost like a little shimmery reflection or ripply fog settling in on the top of that water. And I'm going to do that same thing all along in through here as well. So I have just a little bit of that grayish blue color on my brush, and I'm going all the way across this bottom area. We'll add a bit more brighter spots in a few minutes, but this is just going to get it started so we have that initial real excellent appearance of that water starting or that fog starting. I think I need a little bit more paint on my brush because I'm not having I'm not able to see it very much, so just adding a touch more on my brush. I think I have a little bit too much white there. There we go. And then just again, just starting to get this to work its way into the water. You can have a couple of thicker spots. You can have a couple of thinner spots. I'm just moving my brush back and forth, left to right. And now that I've got that bluish kind of darker shade, ooh, I need this equal line, I need that over on this side too, just to give the effect of that back horizon line. So I've got that now. So now that I've got that darker area, now I can start building towards the lightness of it. So I'm probably not going to use any more black. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to do that same exercise with putting a little bit of blue, a little bit of white on my brush, wiping it off on the side of my palette, dipping my brush a tiny bit in water, and then patting it on my paper towel. So now I've still got some blue on there, but now what's going to happen is it's going to start to get a little bit brighter, and I'm just going to start to tap my brush. I'm moving it left to right a little bit. If you feel you have too much water on your brush, just tap it a little bit more or dab it on your paper towel. And this is where I'm going to start to bring up some of the mist even higher. So I do this in a gradual way so I don't end up adding too much. And again, it's always easier to keep adding than it is to take away. So I am building my way towards the lighter areas. I'm going to keep adding a little bit of brightness in through here and just building it out in through here. So now I've just added another layer. Now I'm just picking up white at this point. I just picked up a tiny bit of white and I'm tapping it off on my paper towel because I feel like I've got a good start, and I have a very dry brush right now and I'm being very cautious. So I'm just using the edge of my brush and just kind of bringing up some of these really firmer areas. You can bring some into the water as well. So you can bring this fog out as far as you want it to go into the watery area. And of course, the farther out you bring it, the more of a reflection it's going to show, and it's going to make it look more like it is kind of on that island type of way. I'm going to add some higher kind of fog in through here. And again, I'm just working my way towards the lighter fog that I want, but you can certainly, maybe you want yours to be darker than mine, or you want yours to be taller than mine. Feel free to make it into whatever kind of fog that you would like. But I want that thickest area to be in this front. So it really looks like this, this structure is sitting in front of that back land over there. So I'm just going to kind of keep maneuvering this and playing with it until I feel that I've got it enough. Maybe a touch back there. And if you bump into your building like I just did, you can certainly do a little bit of a corrective brush stroke on top of that as much as you want to. And then once you've got your fog all nice and filled in, and again, just keep tweaking it and keep adding. If you feel like you've done too much, you can always bring back some of those original colors. You bring some blue into it. That's going to make it look, you know, cool and more misty. But you can just keep enjoying this process. Keep fiddling with it as much as you want. And once you feel that you've got enough mystical mist around your castle, you can, yeah, it's looking fun. You can put your, sorry, I'm like, what am I supposed to tell them next? Because I'm having too much fun painting. So once you've got all of your mist and fog on your canvas, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I'm gonna sign this one in the bottom left. I'm using my small brush. I'm using black paint, but you could certainly use whatever color that you would like. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting, you sign it however you would like, and that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very mystical painting, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.